Ratty, said the mole suddenly one bright summer morning, I want to ask you a favor. The rat was sitting on the river bank singing a little song called Duck's Ditty that he had just composed. I don't know if I like that song, Rat, said the mole cautiously. Nor do the ducks, replied the rat. Ratty, began the mole again, what I wanted to ask was, won't you take me to call on Mr. Toad? I've heard so much about him. Why, certainly, said the good natured rat. Get the boat out. It's never the wrong time to call on Toad. He must be a very nice animal, observed the mole, as he got into the boat and took the sculls. He is indeed the best of animals, replied Rat, as they set off to visit the distinguished Mr. Toad. Before long, they were rounding a bend in the river. They came in sight of an elegant old red brick house with well kept lawns reaching down to the water's edge. There's Toad Hall, said Rat, and that creek on the left where the notice board says private leads to his boathouse, where we'll leave the boat. The stables are over there to the right. That's the banqueting hall you're looking at now. Toad is rich, you know. They glided up the creek and into the shadow of a large boathouse. There they disembarked and went in search of Toad. They found Toad resting in a wicker garden chair, with a large map spread out on his knees. Hooray! He cried, jumping up upon seeing them. This is splendid! He shook the paws of both of them warmly. I was just going to send a boat down the river for you, Ratty. I need your help, said Toad. Is it about your rowing, I suppose? Said the rat. Oh, pooh, boating? Interrupted the toad. I've given that up. Now come with me, dear friends. I have something to show you. He led the way to the stable yard, and there they saw a gypsy caravan, shining with newness and painted in a canary yellow and green. There you are, cried the toad. There's real life for you. The open road, the dusty highway. This is the very finest cart of its sort. Come inside and take a look. The mole was tremendously excited and followed him eagerly up the steps and into the caravan. The rat refused to follow. It was indeed very compact and comfortable. There were sleeping bunks, a little table that folded up, a cooking stove, a bird cage with a bird in it, and a variety of pots and pans. All complete, said the toad triumphantly, pulling open a cupboard, revealing a variety of tasty treats. We are ready to set off this afternoon. I beg your pardon, said the rat slowly. But did I overhear you say something about we and set off? And this afternoon? Now, Ratty, said Toad, don't begin talking in that snuffy sort of way. I can't manage without you. You surely don't mean to stick to your old dull old river all your life. I'm not coming, said the rat, and I'm going to stick to my old river. And what's more, Mole's going to stick to me, aren't you, Mole? Of course I am, said the mole loyally. All the same, it sounds as if it might have been fun, he added wistfully. The rat saw that Mole was disappointed. He hated disappointing people. Toad was watching both of them closely. Come along in and have some lunch, he said diplomatically, and we'll talk it over. We needn't decide anything in a hurry. During luncheon, Toad spoke enthusiastically of the joys of the open road, so much so that the mole could hardly sit still in his chair. Before long, unable to disappoint his friends, the rat had agreed to go. When they were ready, Toad led his companions to the paddock to capture the old gray horse. For his part, the old gray horse did not want to be captured. Eventually, though, the horse was caught and harnessed, and they set off. It was a golden afternoon. The smell of the dust they kicked up was rich and satisfying. Late in the evening, they drew up a remote common, turned the horse loose to graze, and ate their simple supper, sitting on the grass. At last, they turned into their little bunks in the cart. Toad sleepily said, Well, good night, you fellows. This is a real life for a gentleman. After so much open air, the toad slept very soundly, and no amount of shaking could rouse him next morning. So the mole and the rat set to work. The rat saw to the horse as it lit a fire, while the mole trudged off to the nearest village for milk and eggs. The hard work had all been done by the time Toad reappeared. They had a pleasant ramble that day along narrow by lanes and camped as before on a common. This time, the two guests made sure that Toad did his fair share of the work. As a result, when the time came for starting next morning, Toad was no longer singing the praises of the open road. Their way lay, as before, along narrow country lanes, and it was not till the afternoon that they encountered their first main road. There, disaster struck. For as they strolled and chatted, from far behind them an unfamiliar sound could be heard. Glancing back, they saw a small cloud of dust advancing on them. From out of the dust, a faint pop-up sounded. Ignoring that strange vision, they turned to resume their conversation. Then, in an instant, the peaceful scene was changed. A blast of wind and a whirl of sound caused them to jump out of the road. The pup-pup sound rang out once more. As this sound rang out, they glimpsed a magnificent motor car with its pilot hugging the wheel. This splendid vehicle flung a cloud of dust in their direction and then was gone. At the sight and sound of this vehicle, the old gray horse reared and backed towards a ditch. Before long, the canary yellow and green colored cart lay on its side. The rat glanced up and down in the road. "You villains!" he shouted, shaking both fists. While Rat was shaking his fist, the toad sat straight down in the middle of the dusty road and murmured, "Hup, hup." For his part, the mole was busy trying to quiet the horse. Then he went to look at the cart on its side in the ditch. The rat came to help him, but to no avail. "Hi, Toad," they cried. "Come and help us." The toad did not reply, so they went to see what was the matter. They found him in a sort of a trance, his eyes still fixed on the dusty road. The rat shook him. "Are you coming to help us, Toad?" he demanded. "Wonderful sight," murmured Toad. "The real way to travel." "Oh, stop being a fool, Toad," cried the mole. "And to think I never knew," continued the toad. "But now I do. What dust clouds shall soon spring up behind me." "What are we to do with him?" asked the mole of the rat. "Nothing at all," replied the rat firmly. "You see, I know him too well. He is now possessed. Never mind him. Let's go and see what there is to be done about the cart." A careful inspection showed them that the cart was in a hopeless state. The rat knotted the horse's reins over his back and took him by the head, carrying the bird cage in the other hand. "Come on," he said grimly to the mole. "It's 5 or 6 miles to the nearest town, and we shall just have to walk." "But what about Toad?" asked the mole anxiously. "Oh, bother Toad," said the rat. "I've done with him." They had not proceeded very far on their way, however, when there was a pattering of feet behind them, and Toad caught up. "Now, look here, Toad," said the rat sharply. "As soon as we get to the town, you'll have to go straight to the police station to lodge a complaint, and then you'll have to make arrangements to have the cart mended." "Police station? Complaint?" murmured Toad. "Me complain of that heavenly vision that has saved me? Mend the cart? I'm done with carts forever." The rat turned from him in despair. "You see," he said to Mole, addressing him across Toad's head, "he is quite hopeless." On reaching the town, they left the horse at a stable and gave what directions they could about the cart. They went home by train and escorted Toad to his house. Then they got out their boat from the boathouse and set off for home. The following evening, the mole was sitting on the bank fishing when the rat, who had been chatting to friends, came strolling along to find him. "Heard the news?" he said. "Toad went up to town and ordered a large and very expensive motor car."